Thank you so much. I greet you everyone here. Just give me a quick moment. I will try to share my screen because meanwhile the intro, my virtual machine where was the demo and everything shut down because of the time. So I quickly turn it on and yeah, I think you should be able to see the screen. Can you?
Yes, yeah, see it fine, Stepan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we are here today to speaking about the Power BI REST API with Power Query Optic. Just short, my introduction. As was mentioned, I'm Stepan Resl, but you can pronounce my name as a Steve if it would be easier for you. As was correctly mentioned, I'm the co-founder of company Database and Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. But let's jump into the agenda. What I have here for you for today. First of all, we will speak about what is Power BI REST API and REST API itself. Then how it can help me, how if there are some cases where to use it. Next, how to get the access token. What is it and how to receive it? Because you will definitely need it if you would like to cooperate with Power BI REST API. Then, where to find the IDs and the secrets, because if you want to generate the access token, you will need them also. Then, I have here for you a little bit about the production time and the demo time. So, let's jump in. Okay, let's start with a simple question. What is Power BI REST API? To be able to answer this question, I will have to start from the scratch. And what's the scratch in this point of view? It's what's the REST API itself? Imagine that you have the users that want to get their data from a server. By that, they can use some interface, which is called the application interface, that's API. By some call that can be the get, post, put, delete, patch, etc. You can make the calls against this interface that will send your request and translate it into the native language of the server. The response that will be received would be returned to you by a specific format. It could be JSON, XML, or HTML. It just depends on the settings of the API and of some settings that you made up through the call. But what about the Power BI REST API? What it can manage? Which type of data it can give me? Power BI REST API allows you to programmatically get data about your data flows, data sets, development pipelines, workspaces, reports, literally about every single point inside the Power BI service. About the whole of the app, you can receive any single information. And not just to get them, but as was mentioned, REST API can be also used as a put, post, delete, etc. So even by this API, you can modify your Power BI service and maybe automate your work. As was mentioned, even against this type of API, I can do a get, post, put, update, and delete calls. But how it can really help me? If I would look on it from the get point of view, I can get what type of data sets I have, what data refreshes has been made, parameters, data sources, gateways, users, etc. As I mentioned, literally about any point of the view inside a Power BI service, I can provide my get call. There are some very strange limitations in this moment. The first would be about the gateways, because if you want to receive the gateways, you will have to call slightly different API, not the Power BI API itself, because if you would try to do it through the Power BI API, You will receive just the gateways that you are managing. If you want to receive all of them, you will have to use the API that is hidden inside the Power Platform admin portal. But let's check what data will we receive about the dataset and maybe about the users. Okay, about the datasets, the result that I would get, it would be the JSON with this type of a list of parameters. I will receive the ID, name, add row by API. That is the logical type. It means if the dataset is able to receive the data by the push or not, then the who configured the dataset, if it's refreshable, effective identity required, etc. Literally, even after very small call like get datasets, I will receive the huge amount of informations. And it can look like this. This is just taken one row from the whole table that I've called, where you can see how the response can look like from the get dataset call. If I will look like on a users from the same dataset, because if I want to receive the users from Power BI service, I always have to call this API call against specific artifact. It would be against the workspace, dataset, data flow, etc. But in this point of view, I can see which type of user access right the user has. Email address, display name, identifier. That identifier would be his UPN, the graph ID, principal type, and member type. It's not much information about the user, but still it's enough for me to get more information about them, because thanks to the Graph ADI, I can call another Microsoft API, that is Graph API, and by this I can receive literally any information about the user. Okay, now for the post. If I would like to set up something inside the Power BI service, the mostly used call or type of a call would be the post one. I can post into the dataset new users. I can take over the dataset if I want to be owner of it and be able to set up the schedule refresh. I can update the parameters, update data sources. I can even refresh the dataset, and not the whole. I can refresh even the partition by this API, not just by using similar endpoint. Even that, I can bind the dataset to the gateway. Then just quick two calls that I can do as the delete one. Just to remind that this is not all calls that can be done through the API, because there, I would say about 100 of them that you can do, and we will be there for a very long time if I would like to show you every single call. But you can delete, by the delete call, you can cancel the refresh. That's something that can't be done without the API or without the similar endpoint. You can also delete the dataset, dashboard, report, etc. But the cancel refresh was pretty interesting for me, that, hey, I can cancel the refresh when I start some refresh accidentally, so I can do a quick call and just simply delete it. Okay, but now how to access it? This is a very simple question, but it can be very tricky one. Why? Because to be able to call or access this API, I can be user or the app, the service principal. Both of these entities has slightly different way how they are receiving something that's called access token. This access token is necessary if you want to receive your data. because Power BI service and Power BI REST API will never know that you are the one who's trying to get the data without your access token. If you send it with your call, you will receive the response as we would expect. But how to receive this token? So let's clarify something. If we want to receive the token as a service principal, let's stay on this level. You will have to call the Active Directory for the authorization. The Active Directory will return you the access token that you will combine with type of token and send a request with this modified token. Then you will receive the response. This is the basic schema. It's absolutely easy. There are much more complicated schemas around, but I think this completely fits for us. But how to do this authentication with Power Query? Yeah, M is for the magic, so let's the magic happen. I have there the prepare the M code. You can find this M code on this link that is under, and I think we will drop it into the chat lately. This code, as you can see, has here the resource. It's something against we will be trying to authenticate, because once we are generating this type of token, this access token, every time we need to set up for what type of APIs we will be our token using. And if you will generate the token for the resource like this, the analysis.windows.net/Power BI/API, you can't use it for call against the Graph API. If you do, you will receive the authentication error. So every time you have to think about what resource you would need to use. Okay, now when we have the resource, we can get into the token response. It's a very simple web contents call where we are calling Microsoft endpoint login.windows.net with the relative path where will be our Azure AD tenant and the suffix OAuth2/token. But we will still need provide some kind of authentication because it can't be done without some client secrets and client ID. As I mentioned, here in the web contents is URL, the relative path, then the body of a call. If we would provide everything what's needed, we will receive this type of answer. There's a token type expires in because every token that you generated has its own lifespan. And if you try to use it after the lifespan, you will receive the error because you will have to recreate the token and start from scratch. The resource against what you are trying to call and for what was the access token created. If you combine this access token with a token type, you will receive very classical type of text that is bearer space and rest of a token. Bearer, it's the type of a token, so you can have many other types. So just think of it that you every time has to combine these two in a single string. Okay, this is just about the OAuth because in this moment we will receive the token which we needed. So how we can find and where we can find our client secret and client ID that I mentioned that they has to be passed through. The client ID would be found lately. Resource, as I mentioned on the beginning, we have in a start of our query. Grant type is already here. We are trying to do the grant type through the client credentials. So client ID, client secret. Where they are? They are inside the Azure Active Directory again. So yeah, as the Adele said, hello, it's me. If you would go to the portal.azure.com, find out the Active Directory and go inside a registered app, you can create here the app that will, on an overview page, have the application/client ID. The object ID in this moment isn't really for us. We just need this client ID. If you would go then into the credentials and secrets, you can create here something that's called client secret. If you are generating this secret, you have to set up the expiration. As it was at the access token, once this secret expires, you will have to regenerate it. So try to set up some alarms around it that you have to recreate the secret, because without that, some functions could fall down. When we have them, we can very simply put it into this type of function, just to put it inside, and we will be able to receive our token. Okay, now let's go to the production time. There are some rules that has to be followed. Every call that we want to make has its own limitations. It can be about the calls per an hour, execution time of a call, permission, etc. The client secret and generated token has its own lifespan, as I mentioned before. And sorry for the replying myself once again, but this can make very, very much issues. So you have to think about it, really. Then the Power BI desktop will allow you to do a little more than your dataset really can inside the Power BI service. In a moment, you will able to see it. Then, but maybe Dataflows can save you. And some two more points has to be said. The Dataflows are storing the entities/tables as a type table. So if you loaded the query output in a text or number, etc., it can be anything, Dataflows will natively convert it into the table to prevent to have it. So you want to still have it as a text, you have to disable the load of the query. If you don't, it will convert into the table, and after the saving, everything could go wrong. Also, what has to be said, it is data sources that use anonymous authentication are automatically given policy level public only inside the data flow. In data sets, you will receive it will automatically set them to the private. If you know how the privacy level works, you will find out that this can be very tricky. Let's build a data set with functions. Let's say that we have very plenty of Power Query functions that we can call. It will be functions that can receive our data from Power BI REST API. And in this moment, I think I can switch into the demo. I hope everything will be on. So Power Break, and I will try to open it. Just give me a short moment. By the way, meantime, you can ask about anything. I've set it up on a phone so I can see if you would have any question here.
There's no questions yet, Stepan.
Okay. Yeah, this is great. Okay, I have here very very simple Power BI report that is saying me the average of refreshes in a second, and I can see if it has been completed, failed, or if I would call everything, it would be timeout, because there are 3 native differentiators inside the type which you can receive of response. And if I see correctly, we have here a few questions. First would be what licenses will be needed for this. For Power BI REST API, you literally no need any license. I think there are only one call that really can be done only with the license, and it has to be with a premium per capacity license, and it's the generate the file, generate PDF, PowerPoint, etc. All other calls can be done without any license, but you will have to have set up everything inside the Power BI admin portal. Then there was a question if I can give a service principal the permission read all datasets. Is there a chance to limit the visible dataset, or if you give if you give service principal account the ability to read all dataset, then you can do nothing about to prevent them to see everything. Once you give them the API permission read the dataset.read.all, then you can't prevent it. Okay, let's jump back. I will open the Power Query. In Power Query, I have there the get PBI token. When I'm creating the functions around getting the tokens, I'm separating them by the names, because this token would have the resource for a Power BI. If it would be Graph API, it would be get Graph API token, etc. Also, when I have there get PBI token, I have there 2 more functions. One is get datasets as an admin without the user, because when you want to call Power BI REST API, you have to be thinking about if you would like to call it as an admin, and admin can see everything, or as the user. If you call it from the user perspective, you will be able to see the datasets, workspace, etc. Only that user will able to see. So that's something that you have to be thinking. Not all calls are made with the admin endpoint. There are many of calls that aren't inside the admin endpoint, but still will return you every single point of a Power BI service, even that it's not admin endpoint, but if that user has admin rights. The thing or the call about what I'm speaking is the workspace call. If you would like to receive all the workspaces, then if I remember it correctly, you can't do it by admin call. Then you will have to use it by groups call, but admin inside the Power BI can natively see all the workspaces through the Power BI admin portal. So by this, he is able to receive all the groups workspaces. Okay, back to this call. Get datasets as an admin without the user. It's very simple call against the admin endpoint with relative path dataset. Then I'm just returning declaring the table and the types that will be received. Yeah, I can discard changes. And one more call that I have here, that is for exact data set that has to be set up by the dataset ID. And it's receiving, it's returning the dataset refresh history. It's good when you want to see how the refreshes for a specific dataset works, or if you want to find out if there inside your Power BI service is some kind of dataset that is constantly falling. If I would look inside the call itself, I can find out that there's a very short call that is a get dataset as an admin without user, and it needs only token inside. Then I'm filtering and calling another function that, as I mentioned before, get dataset refresh history. If I will expand everything, I will be able to receive this very easy call. The result of this call can look like this. I know it's terrible, it's not pleasant to see, but I have here one call that is failing, or that failed. Every other call worked, and even by that I'm able to see here if the call was scheduled or it was on demand. So even these types, a refresh type, I can find there. Even if you would call by similar endpoint, you will find it here by a new type. But okay, let's publish it. When we have it inside this report, why not to try to publish it to find out if everything is working? I will try to find out if I can open it. Sorry, give me a moment. I will have to open it because when it fall down, it took everything with it. Yeah, I have it here. I also published it today about 14 a.m. Sorry, about 2 p.m. If I would go into the schedule refresh, I can find here some kind of error. This error with IDB command is very common when you are trying to combine the two different worlds together. And what I mean with two different worlds, I'm able to generate the PBI token, but to be able to receive the data from the next API, I have to use generated tokens. So there has to be some kind of lineage between these two separate worlds, Azure Active Directory ID and Power BI Service ID. But how then I can do it? I will quickly jump back because I have there just a little pun. Okay. I showed you one type of error. The second one that you would be able to see if you would try to do it like this, it would be iData reader interference. These two errors can completely ruin all your work. Okay, so then why is it like this? I dropped you here the link for Chris Webb's blog when he has very interesting article about Power BI data privacy levels and how to deal with them. But let's try think different. If it's not working inside the dataset once I publish him from the Power BI desktop, let's try to provide same calls inside the data flow to find out if there's any difference between the dataset and the data flow itself. I will go back into the into the machine where I have the Power BI. I will jump into the demo mode and try to create a data flow. We will just quickly wait. Okay, I want to create data flow from scratch. So define new tables. Let's say I need a blank. Yeah, we can do it from the scratch really. And the easiest way how to copy all the queries is just to get the output and copy it back into the data flow. Because once I'm doing this transfer, it will take all the lineage steps before and take it with it. So I can now delete the blank query and let's go into the token. It will say, hey, you need to configure how to get the credentials. It will be anonymous because all the necessities are provided inside the call where I'm pushing the tenant ID, client secret, client ID, etc. Okay, let's now jump in the dataset. First of all, it's saying that it's unable to combine the data. And it's also saying the reference are the query steps. So I can disable privacy level. This warning will not show every time. If you do this disable, it would make everything for you. If this wouldn't appear, you just have to go into the options, the project options, and allow combining data from multiple sources. It's the completely same settings. Now I can just simply refresh it. And now it needs to know what type of connection I would like to use. I will stay at the anonymous type. And in this moment, it will be able to receive all my data. As you can see, the token is set up to italic, so the load is disabled. So it will not transfer the token from a string to a table. So I'm still able to using it through the source. Okay, save control and create a data flow. Okay, try solution and save it. I would go into the set scheduled refresh because if I have something that will be gathering these data, I want to do it automatically. So, okay, edit credentials. Anonymous will be for the login. And now, if I would like to set the authentication method for the admin, once I click the sign in, I will receive this error because for this type of configuration, it doesn't know about the token. So in this moment, I will skip the test connection. Even with this skip, I would be able to provide the refresh. If I wouldn't inside the data flow set it up to able to combine different queries, then I would receive here an error. And also you have to, at the schedule refresh, set it up, as I mentioned before, the skip the test connection, because for this type of authentication, it wouldn't call the token before. But for a real refresh, it will. So in this moment, I will open a new query. Wait for a moment. Data flow, Power BI data flow. Not this one, this. Yeah, we have their data sets. I will call for data sets. In this moment, I can delete every other data set that is here. I will just rename it and push the close and apply. Let's wait for a moment, because in this moment we are receiving the data from a data flow and everything seems that it's working. Okay, let's try to publish it and republish against the previous. Okay, sorry. I will just save it. Drop it here. Okay, and to rename it so we'll be able to see the previous and new one. Yeah. Upload file, local file. So the new one is now uploading. In a short amount of time, we will be able to see there the new dataset, new report, and if I would switch into the lineage view, we will be able to see that it's connected to a try solution. In this moment, I can refresh the dataset refresh underscore new one. Everything seems correctly. It seems like it refreshed. So let's try it once more. I will refresh the try solution, the data flow, with the Power Query code that is against the Power BI REST API. Seems like worked. Okay, refresh the dataset also. And because we have it, I can open the report. If everything worked correctly, I would be able to find here in a search the dataset, the new one. And as you can see, everything worked correctly. This is the previous call that we made, and it was just about the 3 seconds of a refresh. So in this moment, we were able to get the data from Power BI REST API and get them into the data set. And in this moment, we can build any report we want from all the data that are stored inside the Power BI service. I would like to mention that it was already posted here in the chat. There was a post, the old library, sorry, but you can find the new one, the Power BI REST API. It's an open source library where you can find many more calls that you can use, or you can also contribute on them. So we've tried to deal with it by data flow. As I mentioned, you have to set up the project inside the project options, the allow combining data from multiple sources through on. Without this checkbox, nothing will work. But once you try to use this checkbox, you will find out that everything can work very easily. So data sets are not the option in this moment, but data flows are. Yeah, there's a quick demo. We can see here that the refresh history is completed. So I can see very easily it's alive, because in this moment, as I mentioned before, we can receive any type of data from Power BI service. Even you can query another data set for its data, because Power BI API has inside one very specific call that is called execute queries. This call allows you to execute DAX query against a different data set. Now you can ask why the hell I would like to use this. It can be very powerful when you want to take your data from the Power BI and distribute it to a people by the Power Automate, by adaptive cards, and maybe by the emails if you are email-oriented company. Because now we know that it has to be dealt by data flows. Now you can see how the construction schema could look like. The queries with different refresh periods could be dealt from in a different data flows, and all of them can be combined into one data flow that would be used for data sets itself. Let's quickly summarize it. Power BI REST API can help you with various areas such as automation, audit, logs, and exploration. Automation because you can set up one data flow to refresh other Power BI data sets, data flows, etc. And also it can automate the download of Power BI service data. Audit because you can use very simple call activity events to receive all the because through the activity events you can receive the data about your user's activity inside the Power BI service. It's a little bit similar with the logs here. And the exploration, if you want to find out what's happening inside your Power BI service and you don't know it, because there are calls that can find out if there is link for your report or data set that is widely shared inside your organization and you even don't have to know about it. Then it can be used to obtain a data you need to have access. For the obtaining of data, you need to have an access token. That is to a correct scope. Scope or resource has to be set up when you are requesting the access token. And also you have to have permissions to be able to use these calls, because even if you don't have these permissions, you are able to receive your token, but still you will not get the answers from the API without correct permissions. I can get the token from a user point of view or the application point of view. The token has its own lifespan, same as client secret. Then a data flow can obtain the token and use it directly to obtain the data, but you have to allow him to combine data from multiple sources. And in this moment, I would thank you for the attention, because we were able to went through the 40 slides and the demo in very quick time. So thank you so much for your attention, and I'm here for answer all your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Stepan. That was really good, in depth as well. So a lot of really interesting points to think about there. So let me just check. I'm not sure there's any questions in the chat.
So you can create a data flow with incremental refresh so that you can keep the history since. Yes. You can create a data flow with incremental refresh to be able to store this data even longer than for the last 30 days. And if you have your own integration between Dataflow and Azure storage account, you can connect to all these snapshots that are stored inside the storage account and to be able to receive these data even without incremental refresh. But I wouldn't recommend it, because in that moment you are querying very, very high amount of files and it will be stacking over and over and over. So incremental refresh would be easier way, and definitely the most easiest way would be from something else like Data Factory, just to gather them and then just to connect the outputs. But if you want to connect just a single source of a truth without other applications, or you can't use the other applications, this could be the way.
Okay, I'm going to answer that one. She's typing something else. I mean,
I see.
if you want to ask the question, Rishi, I'll you can come
You
up and you can ask.
You can unmute yourself if you like.
Yeah, might be easier.
Hey, thanks, Gavin. Yeah, thanks, Stepan. That was fantastic. I was just saying, I've only ever used PowerShell for this before. So Rui Romano has on GitHub some PowerShell commandlets and a report to
Nice.
all of this. But yeah, I think there's a few different approaches. There's Power Automate I've seen as well. Tommy Paliga has a community solution for it, and Just has a solution in ADF for this as well. So yeah, there's a few different approaches. I've not actually seen the Dataflow approach before though. It's quite nice.
So I'm glad you like it. And I would like to say that I've never worked with a PowerShell before, but Catherine knows it, that I think it's a week ago I've made my first PowerShell script. And it was only to get one function that is currently missing inside the Power BI service. So I think I can drop it here also, because I'm not sure if you ever try to deal with Power BI scorecards and you want to duplicate some. Because for me, it was very complicated to use it without the duplication, because I need to set up a rule for about 100 of scorecards, and it was absolutely perfect. So I had to make the PowerShell script for it. And now I'm thinking how to deal with it through the Power BI data flow itself, because then it would be great to have just Active Directory list of users and be able to generate it dynamically through the data flows right inside.
Great, well done. I find PowerShell a bit of a dark art as well. So it's one of those things that if you don't use it frequently, it can certainly confuse you. But I know it's very powerful.
That's a really good sentence for a meme.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. Right, I'll stop the recording as well now.
Yeah, we can.